Hello, everybody. I did the whole thing without even sharing my screen, and that's amazing. Well, I'm going over databases, the first material, because I will probably forget it, and there's no good YouTube videos out there that are teaching what the teacher expects us to do. So I just decided to make one. So you have like these symbols that you should know. This represents entity, attribute, relationship, total participation. What does total participation mean? It basically means that there's a link between stuff and it has to occur. This entity totally participates within this relationship. So it's like a one, right? And then you have a weak entity. Well, why would you use a weak entity? There's a perfect example within our notes. If I can just pull it up, you're going to use a weak entity in this type of relationship. You have an employee has dependents. Well, the company doesn't really want to give every dependent a specific ID because that is just a lot of, it just clutters the system. So we're going to have dependents become a weak entity of employee. And basically, what this weak entity does is that it has no primary key, right? It only has a partial key that's related to employee. Then you also have like the links between, which are the simple lines. And then you have multivariable attributes, which are like if you have multiple phones, like phone numbers, you can have that as a multivariable attribute. And then you have derived attributes. Well, derived attributes are things that you don't actually have to prompt the user for. So let's say you want to get the date as an attribute, and you also want to get the date of birth. Well, you can have date of birth as an attribute, and then you could have you could have or wait, like let's say you want to get the age, and you have the date of birth, right? Well, age can be a derived attribute, and you see this uh in many systems. So I did a full like thing unrecorded, but I'm just gonna I don't know whether I should explain it again or just start anew. This is pretty much the end goal. I'm just gonna start it again and just redo it because I feel like you guys benefit from me going through it. But if you want to see what we're gonna end up with, it's pretty much this. So we have a hotel chain. And we have many attributes attached to it. Let's say we have a multivariable attribute, which is phone number. We also have the ID, hotel chain ID. This is a primary key, so it's underlined. And you can add more attributes. It doesn't really matter. And then we also have hotels within the system. What should be the relationship between hotels and hotel ID? Well, you could just say owns. That's a diamond, by the way. So we could say many hotel chains own many hotels. Hotels belong to many chains. Uh, it's a many to many relationship because, yeah, that's pretty much it. I trying to think if that actually makes sense now. Hotel chains, hotel. I'm gonna keep it because it will help us learn more about like these relationships when there are many to many and how you will handle that uh in a relational schema. For now, we're just doing the ER model and I'll do the relational schema. I'm just going to keep it even if it doesn't really make sense. You can always assume that hotels can belong to many hotel chains. And then that's a way to like gotcha yourself into winning more points. But this hotel has hotel IDs, which is going to be a primary key. It's underlined. It also has phone numbers, which is multivariable. You can have many phone numbers attached to a hotel, and then it has a rating. Okay, now in this hotel, you have rooms. And I say rooms, which kind of details what this relationship would be. So a hotel contains many rooms. Let's see here, contains, and every room belongs to a hotel. So this is kind of one of the main differences between SEG and databases, which are pretty similar. But let's say you have two relationships in SEG, and let's say you have like petal, and then you also have flower. And SEG, it's going to be like this type of relationship where every petal has one flower, and every flower has multiple petals. You can see it's like the same type of relationship between hotel and rooms, right? But it's these are switched. I can even like change this to be hotel and rooms. In terms of software engineering, so if I change this is hotel, this is rooms. Like this is perfect in SEG. But if you realize these values are swapped. Now this means total participation. And this is basically akin to like a one relationship. Like this must totally participate within this relationship. But I just want to point that out so people don't get stuck in the future. Like it is the opposite from SEG. Uh, and you should look out for it. Okay, we're gonna continue. I'm just gonna actually erase my notes because I need all the space I can get. Okay, so we have rooms. Rooms can have their own room ID. You underline the primary key, and then you could also have like a price, a capacity. I'm not going to add too many attributes because we're going to do something with this later. Uh, and then let's think about this. What are we making right here? We're making like a hotel booking system. We're going to need to have like customers. And these customers are going to be an entity. Let me just fix that. Yeah, we're going to have customers. So let's have like a customer. I'm just going to call it cust. Okay, just for now. And then we're going to have maybe an address attached to this. You can make other variables. You're of course going to have a customer ID. This is primary, so it's underlined. And then this customer is going to book these rooms. So what would the relationship between room and customer be? Well, it depends on what you assume. I'm going to say that every customer can book one, so at least one, too many rooms. And if you're going to apply this to like a system, you're going to say like, okay, in the system, in order to become a customer, you must book a room. So you won't actually have a customer sign in until you book a room. That's just another detail and a future project you might have to build. In this book, we're going to have a attribute that's related to this relationship, which is going to be book, or it's going to be date. Because in this book, we want to keep track of the date. You could also have an archive attached to that. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So we have a customer, we booked the room. This is perfect. Now we're going to make employees for this hotel. And this employee can have an employee ID. You can have an SSN, which is a primary key to like keep track of the employee. You can have a name attached to it. You can have many things. Okay. This employee, well, works for the hotel. So, oh, I keep doing this. Works for the hotel. What does this relationship mean? Well, every employee probably works for the hotel, and hotel can have many employees. This is like another thing. Just gonna reiterate the difference between SEG and this. It's literally it's the go between, let's say you have these type of relationship in SEG, you read this value and then you read that. In databases, you have like this little breakage just to show like this is databases. You're reading this value and then you're reading that, right? That's like a difference. So hotels have many employees. Employees have a single hotel that they work for, hopefully, unless they have two jobs. Okay. Now, let's say you have also managers. Well, you can use inheritance like we've seen before. It works the same between SEG and databases, where manager inherits all the keys from or all the attributes from employee. And you could also have like a same relationship of like runs instead of works for. And then you could have this hotel. Let's say every hotel has like one manager. So this could be total participation, uh, or it could just be one, like at least one. Let's say maybe actually let's keep it at a 1-to-1 relationship. We can just make an assumption that every hotel at least or only has one manager. And let's say in order for the customer to convert their booking into a actual rental, they must check in. And in order to check in, you must have an employee available and present. So this is kind of gonna lead us into like the next phase. This is check in. And customer has to be totally participating in the check-in. Employee has to be there. What else? Well, once you check in, you want to associate it maybe within an archive of sorts. Within this archive, you probably want to have like the date. And then you, of course, need a archive ID, which is underlined. And then the customer must pay at the door when they check in. And let's say this has a pay ID, which is underlined as well. And this has maybe a date associated with it. So that's pretty much it. You can break it into pieces and you can try to like, you can be fancier with this, add more attributes. I'm going to probably make the relational schema for this later, so I don't want to add too much or too many. It's pretty much SEG. There's just some key differences that you have to know and recognize, like as I said before with these things. So like how you have different here's different notations, but this will lead you to a good start. Okay.